Did you know that WordPress still powers over 40% of all websites on the internet? This makes it one of, if not the most popular content management system globally, used by millions of websites ranging from personal blogs to major corporate sites like those of the New York Times, Microsoft, and more. Combined with AI and automation by BuildShip, anyone can level up their WordPress publishing experience with little to no hassle. Let's look at a quick demo of this automation powered by BuildShip. Here's a BuildShip workflow that takes in a YouTube video. In this case, we're using this latest YouTube video from the BuildShip YouTube channel. After that, our workflow will extract the auto-generated captions of that video and then use GPT to form up a blog post. And the last step in our workflow is publishing that blog post to a WordPress website. Here's my WordPress website that I'm using in this demo. Let's give our workflow a test. And after a few seconds, we have a new post published to our WordPress website. We can then copy this rendered link to bring up that blog post. And here's our new post with the title, Seamlessly Connect BuildShip and Flutterflow, Advanced Voice Notes to Notion Integration Tutorial. We can see the publisher's list, and then we have the full body of the post generated with GPT. Now, how amazing is that? If you're a regular WordPress blogger and you often blog about your YouTube videos, then you're going to want to watch this one until the end. In this video, we'll cover starting with the YouTube to WordPress template, setting up an application password on your WordPress site so BuildShip can authenticate to publish posts, stepping through the template and configuring where necessary, and finally, deploying and demoing the setup. Let's start by cloning the YouTube to WordPress template. In BuildShip, we'll navigate to the templates page, and from here, we'll search for WordPress. And then we'll just select the YouTube to WordPress GPT Blogger template. This will spin up an almost fully completed workflow for us. We still need to do some configurations for some of the nodes in this workflow. So to begin, we'll start from the very top. In BuildShip, the entry point of any workflow will always be a trigger. And a trigger is just the way for which you want to start the execution of your workflow. BuildShip offers multiple triggers such as handling Stripe payments, running scheduled tasks, and much more. This particular REST API call trigger will give us a publicly accessible API endpoint after we deploy our workflow that we can then use to call and execute our workflow. We're setting here the API endpoint to be WP-GPT Blogger, and then the HTTP method is set to GET. Next, we have the YouTube Caption Extractor node. And this node extracts the auto-generated subtitles from a video. And all we need to do here is specify the URL of the video we want to extract the captions from. For this demo, we're going to be using another video from the BuildShip YouTube channel. So all we need to do is bring up that video, copy the URL, and paste it as the URL here. Interestingly, we don't have to wait until we fully set up our workflow to be able to see the output of nodes. For example, it would be very useful to see the output of this YouTube Caption Extractor node so that we know it's working fine. To do that, we can select the play button and then just make sure we paste that URL. The language is set to English and we can run our node. By testing our node, we'll see a preview of what the output structure will look like, as can be seen here. If we expand this, we can see that we get back an object that contains a subtitles array, and then we get back all the text from that YouTube video. Great, but notice how the subtitles are separated by timestamp. What we prefer to do is combine all the text into one single piece of text so that we can provide that nicely to our GPT node. To unify the captions into one single piece of text, we're using the extract and join by key node. We can actually preview what this is doing as well. We'll go to play again, and then for the array, I'll just paste the subtitles that we previously generated, and then the key that we want to extract from the items in that array and combine is the text key. So we can run this node. And there we have it. We get back a single piece of text that we can then feed into our GPT nodes. And speaking of GPT, now that we have the captions of our YouTube video combined into one single piece of text, We're now ready to start generating our blog post and blog title using BuildShip's GPT text generator node. And not to lose sight of the main focus of this video, which is publishing posts to your own WordPress site by using BuildShip's integration nodes with WordPress. But of course, before we can even get to that point, we need to generate our blog post. So for that, we're using two GPT nodes from BuildShip. The first one we're using to generate the post content in Markdown syntax, and the second one we're using to generate only a post title. Before we start diving into these two nodes, let's configure them. And the only configuration we need to do here is entering our OpenAI API key. We're going to be selecting that from our BuildShip secret. And we'll do the same thing for the second node here. If you don't already have your OpenAI API key saved in BuildShip, then you can easily retrieve that from your OpenAI console and then just creating a brand new secret in BuildShip. Now let's take some time to talk about these two GPT text generator nodes we're using. But even before that, notice how we're executing these nodes inside of a parallel node. Because these two nodes can be run independent of each other, that means that we can run them in parallel, which means that our workflow will have better execution performance. Note that the generate post content node and the generate post title node are actually the same node. If we go to the BuildShip library and search for GPT, the text generator node is being used here. All we did was simply rename them for better understanding. And the generate post content node is doing just that. For the user prompt, we're feeding in the auto-generated captions that we extract from the YouTube video. Specifically, we're passing in the captions joined by the extract and joined by key node. Next, let's take a look at the system prompt we're using here. We're telling GPT that it's a professional technical content writer who writes SEO-friendly blogs on a given content transcript. And then what we wanted to do is generate a blog post around those YouTube captions. And notice at the bottom how we're also telling it that we don't want it to generate a title. And this is because we're using a secondary node for doing this. This is the generate post title node. And for the user prompt, we're also passing in the joined YouTube captions. And for the system prompt, we can explore that. And we're just telling it here to generate in plain text a captivating and SEO-friendly title with the given auto-generated YouTube video captions we give it. So our automation for generating blog posts with GPT involves two steps. The first one is for generating the actual body of the post in Markdown syntax. And then the second one is for generating a post title only. But let's go back to the generate post content node. And notice that we have a following node here, Markdown to HTML, that follows. This is because when we publish a post to WordPress using the create post node, the body of the post needs to be in HTML format. So here, Markdown to HTML takes the output of the generate post content node and converts that to valid HTML structure. And once that is done, we can finally move on to the crux of this workflow, which is publishing our GPT-generated post to WordPress. Since we're creating a brand new post here, we're using the create post node from the WordPress integration group. But this is just one of the nodes that you can use for working with WordPress. Let's bring up the BuildShip library, and if we scroll all the way to the bottom, we'll see a newly added WordPress group here. And you'll find nodes for creating a post, which is the one we're using in this workflow. But you can see we also have for deleting a post, getting a single post, and listing a number of posts. For now, we're just going to be focusing on the create post node, which will allow us to publish a post to our WordPress website. Right off the bat, we can see that this node is screaming at us because we're missing some required fields: password, site URL, and username. First, let's enter the site URL, and this is the base URL of your website. So this is the WordPress website that I'm using, and this is the base URL. So what I'll do is we'll just copy this URL and paste it back in our node. And next, we need to enter the username and password. The username here should be the user account you want to publish posts with. That is, the username you enter here will be displayed as the publisher of the post in your WordPress website. So let's go back to our WordPress website and notice how I'm already signed in and my username is Louis. So I'll just enter that for the username. And next we need to enter our password. I already have this stored as a BuildShip secret, so I'll just select it. But before moving on, let me just guide you through the process of creating a password specifically for API access to your WordPress website. To do that, we'll be creating an application password in the dashboard of your WordPress website. So if we go back to WordPress, let's go to the dashboard. And then we'll go to users. And then I'll select my user account. Just scroll all the way to the bottom. And you'll find a section called application password. So note how I already have an application password created. But if you don't already have one created, then it's pretty easy to get one. All you have to do is click add new application password, enter a name for your application password, and that's it. So for example, I can enter an application password name here called test, click add new application password, and then this would be your application password that you would use. And once you have access to this, then you can securely save it in BuildShip as a secret. Back in BuildShip, the next thing we need to specify is our post title. And as we previously covered, we have a specific node for generating the post title. So here for the title, we're accessing the output value of that generate post title node. And then for the body of our post, which is the content input, we're using the output value of the generate post content node. And finally, the last thing we need to select here is what do we want the status of the post to be when we create it. So you can select either publish or draft. But because we want our post to be live for everyone to access, we're setting it to publish in this demo. And then finally, what we're doing is using the return node to return the output of the create post node. And that's at the end of our workflow. So now we can move on to the fun part, which is testing our workflow. And in BuildShip, we can easily test if our WordPress automation works. All we need to do is go to test and hit test workflow. And after a few seconds, when our workflow has finished executing all the nodes, we get back an output from our create post node. Let's expand this output. There's a bunch of metadata contained in this output, but what we're looking for here is the rendered field. This is the actual link to our newly created blog post. We'll copy this and open it up in a new tab. And here's our GPT generated post. Supercharge your BuildShip workflows with Firebase integration, real-time database, and authentication guide. And you can see the publisher is Louis. And then we have the full body of the post. But do you notice that? It looks like we made a mistake. The body of the post is still in Markdown syntax. And that's not what we want. This is ugly. Let's fix that by making sure we're publishing the HTML version of our post. So let's go back to our BuildShip workflow. And then if we scroll down to where we're creating the post, let's look at the content that we're using here. And instead of using the output of the generate post content node directly, what we instead want to do is use the output of the Markdown to HTML node, which is what we're using to convert the post that GPT gives us in Markdown syntax to HTML. So we'll select that. And all we need to do is go back to test our workflow again. Great, our workflow is still working. Now let's copy the rendered link again. And we'll open that up. And this time we should have our post properly rendered in HTML format. And as you can see, it is. Our BuildShip automation for converting a YouTube video to a live WordPress post is working pretty well, but there's still room for improvement. Let's look at how we can make our workflow be more dynamic so that you can pass in any video URL you want to publish as a live WordPress post. Instead of hard coding the YouTube video URL here, let's instead pass that as part of the request we make to our workflow. To begin, after our trigger, what we'll do is add a new node and we'll search for get query param. And we'll select this node. And next we need to enter a key for our get query param node. let's just say URL. And instead of hard coding the video URL, let's use the output value of our getQueryParam node. And that's all the change we need to do our workflow to make it more dynamic. Now let's give it a test. But first, let's go back to the BuildShip YouTube channel and find a different video that we can use for testing. Let's select the node on fail filebox video, and we'll select the video URL. And then back in BuildShip, when we go to test, we need to enter a query param here called URL. Then we can paste the video URL, and then we can test our workflow again. Great, our workflow is still working. Now let's open up the rendered link to preview our blog post. Excellent. As you can see, here's our new blog post with the title, Master Workflow Resilience with BuildShip, how to use the on-fail option for seamless automation. That is correct because the video we're using here is a tutorial on how to handle node on-failing in BuildShip. Perfect. And that's how easy BuildShip makes the process of taking your YouTube videos, converting them to engaging WordPress posts, and publishing them to your site live for the whole internet to read. If you found this video helpful and interesting, then don't forget to drop a like and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're not already a subscriber so that you don't miss out on any of the awesome content just like this that we have coming in the future. Until the next video, happy build shipping!